Rain climbed into the sky as if the heavens demanded back what earth could not keep. Every drop was a fragment of memory returning to the clouds that birthed it. The streets lied untouched, while storms raged silently above your heart. Gravity faltered, and in its failure, your silence became louder than thunder. Raindrops shimmered like lost voices, fleeing upward before you could hear them. The storm did not end, it only inverted, hiding its grief among the stars. The ground thirsted in vain, while the clouds grew drunk on sorrow. Every upward droplet was a refusal to surrender, a rebellion written in water. The streets beneath you looked calm, but your shadow drowned in invisible floods. Rain rose like forgotten prayers clawing their way back to heaven. The sky swelled with weight it could not hold, yet still it pulled more. Raindrops escaped the earth like secrets slipping from trembling lips. The storm reversed itself, yet your scars remained untouched by time. Every upward drop was a reminder that not all things fall. Some rise against all odds. The clouds bore the burden of your silence, swelling heavier with every breath. Rain abandoned gravity, but not memory. The streets sparkled clean, yet you carried filth the storm could never wash away. Raindrops glittered like shattered glass returning to its maker. The sky became a thief, stealing every sorrow the earth couldn't hold. Even storms know how to retreat when you stand in silence. Rain fled from your presence, as though you were untouchable even to storms. Clouds carried the sound of your silence, louder than thunder ever could. Every rising drop was a story denied the soil. The storm bent time backward, but your grief stayed rooted forward. Rain turned itself into a ladder, yet you refused to climb. The ground stayed empty, mirroring the emptiness in your chest. Raindrops vanished into the sky like whispers stolen mid-sentence. The storm folded in on itself, but your silence only expanded. Every drop that rose became proof that not even nature could face your shadow. The streets stayed spotless, but your silence left stains unseen. Rain unspooled from the ground, as though gravity itself bowed before you. Clouds feasted on grief, swelling darker with every upward breath. The storm rose against its own nature, as you did against yours. Every drop was a fragment of truth clawing upward to escape. Rain chose the sky over the ground, as love chose absence over staying. The earth thirsted, but your silence quenched nothing. Raindrops shimmered in rebellion, climbing toward forgotten skies. The storm obeyed no law but your stillness. Every upward drop was a vow broken in reverse. Clouds trembled with the weight of your silence. Rain rose, but your grief stayed unmovable. The storm inverted, yet it never reached you. Raindrops escaped like ghosts, rising instead of falling. The streets looked untouched, but time drowned quietly in you. Rain became a mirror of your refusal to bend. Every upward drop whispered your unspoken name. The storm climbed into silence, leaving the world beneath untouched. Clouds grew restless, heavy with everything you would not say. Rain became resistance, rising higher with every heartbeat. The ground lay barren, but your heart flooded unseen. Raindrops shimmered as though they were fragments of you escaping. The storm unmade itself in your presence. Every drop rose like an echo denied its end. Rain betrayed the ground, loyal only to the sky. Clouds devoured the storm whole, yet remained unsatisfied. The streets bore no storm, but your footsteps thundered silently. Raindrops fled the earth like secrets fleeing discovery. The storm rewrote itself, but not you. Every upward drop was a confession hidden too long. Rain carried the silence you wore like armor. Clouds grew darker with every heartbeat you withheld. The storm inverted, but your shadow stretched forward. Raindrops shimmered like apologies never spoken. The ground waited for rain that would never return. Every upward drop was a promise broken twice. Rain rose higher than memory dared to follow. Clouds carried the burden of all you denied. The storm rewound itself, but your silence pressed on. Raindrops climbed like sorrow desperate to leave. The streets stayed dry, but your mind drowned. Rain abandoned gravity, just as you abandoned hope. Every upward drop became a truth the earth could not handle. The storm bent to your stillness, not your voice. Clouds trembled beneath unspoken weight. Rain became rebellion etched in motion. The ground betrayed nothing, though it knew everything. Raindrops fled like pieces of shattered memory. The storm obeyed your silence, without question. Every drop that rose was a secret you refused to share. Rain became the language of silence inverted. Clouds thickened with words swallowed whole. The storm rose upward like defiance in motion. Raindrops glittered like ghosts refusing burial. The streets whispered lies of calm. Every upward drop was a story lost mid-sentence. Rain inverted, but your shadow stayed true. Clouds ached beneath the silence they carried. The storm rose as though even chaos bowed to you. Raindrops shimmered like grief in flight. The ground thirsted in vain. Every upward drop was an echo swallowed by the sky. Rain betrayed its nature in your presence. Clouds swelled with regret they did not own. The storm inverted, but time did not. Raindrops climbed like prayers unanswered. The streets wore silence like a mask. Every drop that rose was a truth stolen back. Rain carried away what you could not. Clouds bore the sorrow of centuries. The storm retreated upward, leaving earth abandoned. Raindrops glittered like stars out of place. The ground held nothing, though it remembered everything. Every upward drop was a scar rewritten. Rain rose higher, but your silence remained. Clouds trembled, too full to hold. The storm bowed to gravity undone. Raindrops shimmered like broken promises. The streets betrayed no storm, yet echoes lingered. Every drop rose into silence deeper than thunder. Rain fled earth like love fleeing home. Clouds grew restless with weight they did not choose. The storm rose upward, carrying you in fragments. Raindrops left the ground behind, yet clung to your shadow. The earth stayed barren, though storms raged above. Every upward drop was a silence you never broke. Rain bent itself into rebellion. Clouds bore the sorrow you would not release. The storm climbed into the heavens, leaving you beneath. Raindrops glittered as they rose, fragments of your silence set free. The streets were clean, but you were not. Every drop became a wound healing in reverse. Rain's defiance mirrored your own. Clouds ached with silence, not theirs. The storm inverted itself, yet your grief stood still. Raindrops shimmered like shadows set on fire. The ground thirsted, but your silence quenched nothing. Every upward drop was a memory climbing home. Rain betrayed the earth to remain eternal. Clouds grew swollen with unspoken weight. The storm unmade itself in reverence to you. Raindrops became pieces of yourself set free. The streets whispered a lie of calm. Every drop rose into the silence you left behind. Rain inverted time, but not pain. Clouds bore the echo of what you swallowed whole. The storm grew darker with each breath you hid. Raindrops climbed upward, carrying your shadow. The ground stayed silent, but your silence roared. Storm unraveled itself, as though your silence had unstitched the very fabric of rain. Clouds thickened above, drinking every sorrow the ground rejected. The sky inhaled the storm like a lung desperate for breath. Each upward drop carried pieces of a story too heavy to remain on earth. The streets stayed dry, but your heart overflowed in silence. Rain fled from you, rising higher than even hope dared to climb. The storm wasn't chaos, it was a mirror of your restraint. Clouds filled with the weight of things you would not say. Every droplet that rose carried the echo of your name. Rain didn't fall that day. It ascended like prayers denied. The earth stayed still, waiting for you to move first. The sky seemed hungrier than the ground, pulling everything upward. Raindrops glittered like shattered glass, climbing toward heaven. The storm reversed, but your grief refused to follow. The streets beneath your feet betrayed no storm, yet you carried one within. Rain turned its back on the world, as though loyalty belonged to the clouds. The upward storm bent reality, but not your silence. Every drop that rose was a memory you refused to release. The sky swelled with a grief that was never its own. Rain defied its nature, yet you stood unchanged. The storm bowed to you, rising instead of falling. The streets were clean, but your mind remained stained. Every raindrop that climbed whispered of things left unsaid. The storm returned to the heavens, as though earth was unworthy. Rain carried away the echoes of voices you tried to forget. Even storms knew when to retreat. Raindrops escaped the pull of earth the way you escaped the pull of love. The clouds grew heavier with every truth you swallowed. Rain became a ladder between earth and sky, but you refused to climb. The storm folded upward, but your pain stayed rooted deep. Every drop that rose left the world beneath a little emptier. The sky drank greedily, yet remained thirsty. Rain climbed as though the heavens demanded all grief back. The streets were silent, betraying no storm. Every upward drop felt like time unraveling. Clouds absorbed the sorrow the earth denied. Rain no longer belonged to the ground. The storm rewrote gravity, but not memory. Drops shimmered as they rose, carrying light into darkness. The world bent, but your silence remained unbroken. The rain's rebellion mirrored your refusal to break. Clouds became oceans, swelling with stolen grief. Raindrops traveled upward like souls escaping earth. The streets remained empty, but your heart carried floods. The storm bent the laws of nature for you. Every drop that rose was a confession unspoken. Clouds drank heavily of your silence. The rain's climb was desperate, like longing unfulfilled. Gravity faltered, but your resolve did not. The sky bore the weight of your uncried tears. Raindrops rose as though pulled by invisible strings. The streets betrayed no storm, but you drowned quietly inside. Each upward drop was a broken wish. The storm rewound, but your scars did not. Rain left earth abandoned, loyal only to the clouds. The heavens reclaimed what the ground had lost. Every drop carried away fragments of forgotten sorrow. Rain fled from earth like a lover who no longer cared. The clouds grew darker with every secret they swallowed. The storm inverted, but its chaos still lived in you. The streets stayed clean, but your footsteps carried storms. Rain's rebellion mirrored your silence. Every drop, pulled upward, felt like forgiveness reversed. The storm obeyed only the sky. Clouds bore the weight of everything you refused to release. Rain deserted the ground, just as you deserted yourself. The storm turned its back on earth. Every upward drop was a truth stolen back. Clouds swelled with the burden of unshed grief. Rain bent the world, but not your silence. The streets told no story of the storm above. Each raindrop climbed like a soul longing for home. The sky claimed every sorrow you tried to bury. Rain rose upward like regrets unforgotten. The storm moved against time itself. The earth grew thirsty, but rain refused its call. Every drop that rose carried your shadow. Clouds ached beneath the weight of too much silence. Rain fled upward, but your grief remained. The storm became a mirror of resistance. The ground was dry, but your chest was not. Each raindrop was a memory escaping your hold. The sky gathered everything you let slip away. Rain bent its nature for you. The storm rose higher than your silence could reach. Clouds grew restless, heavy with borrowed pain. The rain refused to touch earth, like love refusing to stay. Every upward drop carried echoes of broken time. The storm obeyed no law but yours. Raindrops shimmered like regrets untold. The streets remained dry, but your soul drowned. Rain was not falling, it was remembering. The storm climbed like a prayer unanswered. Clouds became vaults, hoarding sorrow. Each drop rose like truth, fleeing your lips. The rain's rebellion mirrored your survival. Gravity faltered in the presence of your silence. The storm inverted, carrying you with it. Raindrops glittered like pieces of lost time. The streets stood still, betraying nothing. Rain unspooled the hours you tried to forget. The sky carried your sorrow more willingly than earth. Each upward drop was a piece of your silence. Clouds drank until they broke. Rain rose like ghosts returning home. The storm bent itself into grief. Every drop lifted the weight you refused to bear. The earth stayed still beneath your silence. Rain rose upward like a secret set free. Clouds thickened with unspoken words. The storm rewound time, but not memory. Rain betrayed the ground for the sky. The streets lied, they hid the storm you carried. Each upward drop was a confession denied. The sky grew heavier with every breath you held. Rain climbed higher than your sorrow could reach. The storm rewrote every rule for you. Every drop that rose was a vow broken. Clouds bore the silence of centuries. Rain fled the ground, yet clung to your outline. The storm rose against itself, relentless. The streets pretended to be untouched. Every raindrop carried the shadow of your name. Rain abandoned earth, but you never abandoned your grief. The storm mirrored your refusal to fall. Clouds trembled beneath your silence. Rain climbed like unspoken desire. The earth waited for rain that would never return. Every upward drop sang of absence. The storm grew darker with your silence. Rain rose upward, but you stayed rooted. Clouds swelled with sorrow not their own. The streets looked empty, but storms raged inside you. Rain became a ladder to the heavens. The sky held everything you could not. Rain fell upward, soaking the clouds as the streets remained dry beneath your feet. The sky wept in reverse, as though the earth had finally refused to carry its sorrow. Every droplet defied gravity, rising toward a heaven that no longer belonged to us. The storm unmade itself, rewinding every memory you tried to forget. Rain didn't fall on you, it fell away from you, like even nature feared your touch. Clouds swelled heavy with the pain you once carried in silence. The world turned inside out, but your footsteps still echoed louder than the storm. Rain surged upward, as though the sky was thirsty for your grief. Even the weather seemed to know you could not be reached from below. The streets were dry, yet you walked as if you were drowning.